Hey everybody, welcome back to another Monday. You know what that means? It's time for this week's episode of RfRx, your prescription for coping. I'm Kara, I'll be your host this evening, and I have with me returning co-host who's telling us everything is fine, Rob Palmer. Rob, how are you doing?
I'm just fine waiting for a winter storm in New Jersey, and I hope my power doesn't go out. Other than that, I'm
Ooh,
fine.
I hope that too.
I had
It
one
has
come
been
through last weekend and it went out. Luckily, it was just an hour, and there were hundreds of thousands of people who waited days and days and days. So,
Wow, that is dangerous. Someone should lodge a complaint with the authorities or
hmm,
the people who
hmm.
make the weather or
Somebody in
God or something.
higher authority, yes.
Without any further ado, Rob, would you like to introduce our guest slash guests?
It is going to be my absolute pleasure. So, Brian Keith Dalton is a former Mormon, or a foreman, a term he himself coined. He also more recently coined the term excusigist for apologists, which I think is so much more accurately describing what they do. And I absolutely love that term. He's a YouTube atheist pioneer with a background in music, video production, and graphic design. And he started his first web series, Mr. Deity, in 2006, less than 2 years after YouTube itself was created. And he's accumulated over 15 million views on his channel for that series and for his many other video series exploring the problems with religion, of which I think there are quite a few. And Mr. Deity will appear later, and of course, he needs no introduction. So let's start with welcoming Mr. Brian Keith Dalton.
A good
Hello,
way to
everybody.
start.
Yes,
Hello and welcome. We are so glad to have you both on the show.
great to
I
be here.
cannot wait. Yeah,
It's
I
always
was so
fun to
excited.
practice some kind of form of multiple personality. So this is going to be fun this
I
evening.
mean, some people need more practice than others. I don't know,
Yes,
but I
that's
think
true.
it'll be good.
That's true.
Well, and before we get into having you split your personality and everything like that, I would love to hear about you, Brian, Mr. Sexy. Tell us everything. How'd you get here? Tell us about your former faith. How'd you become a foreman? Did you make up that term?
I did make up that term in a hot tub in San Diego in 2000. No, it wasn't. It was 1996. In fact, we were down there to see Shamu with my daughter, and someone asked me if I was religious, and I said no. I I used to be a I'm a former Mormon. And then it just hit me. I could combine those and just make it into Formon, and that's how that happened. It was like that, and I've been calling myself a Foreman ever since, which I think is so much easier than ex-Mormon or ex-Mo or Foreman. It just rolls. It tells you everything you need to know. Former and Mormon.
And it
Spell
sounds
check
like you're
still doesn't recognize it.
supervising. Yeah, it seems like you're
Yes,
supervising the process that way too.
exactly,
Uh,
exactly. I'm working with all the spell check companies to try to get that recognized, but it's been a battle, an uphill battle.
Yeah,
Um,
my iPhone, my spell checker will not let me type that word without changing it.
yes,
The other spelling.
exactly. Yes. So, how did I leave Mormonism? That's a
So
long,
for you,
long.
were you born into it?
I was born Mormon, yes, and to a mom who was a true believer and a dad who'd converted for the sake of the family. He grew up Irish Catholic in Pennsylvania, and I knew he never bought it. And I didn't really want to have all that much to do with it when I was younger. And then when I was 17, I got religion with a vengeance, as Woody would say, and became an Uber Mormon. Um, and I got a record contract with the biggest Mormon record company when I was 19, and did an album of Mormon music, which did quite well within that small little genre. That was just about the time when Mormon radio stations were popping up in Utah to play actual contemporary Mormon
So
music.
can I ask you, how does that differ from Christian music, just general
Not
Christian?
a not a lot, except for the themes are very very Mormon, as opposed to, Mormonism is a very different religion
They sing about Joseph
from
Smith and like,
Christianity. We didn't sing about Joseph Smith, but one song was called "Daughter of God." Um, One song was about your what was it called? Um, your divine potential, because in Mormonism you can become a god. So we had
and
you don't hear
you
that
took
on
that to heart
on
eventually.
yeah, you don't hear that on Christian stations. Um, so it was just it wasn't all. I mean, I used to listen to a lot of Christian music. In fact, one of my favorite all-time albums is still Russ Taff's Metals album, which I think is one of the greatest albums of all time. But yeah, we did that, and then I started working with Dennis Prager of PragerU fame. A lot of people don't know that, but
I would
I
never
worked
have
with him.
guessed that, since one of your channels of videos is Prager FU.
FU, yes, Prager FU. And by the way, people always say, "Oh, that's so vulgar," but if it was going to be the vulgar thing, it would be Prager FY. So
That's right.
the FU, it sounds great and it conveys what I want to say, but it stands for fake university. Um,
Sure it does.
so I thought
Right,
it worked
right.
well as a double
Sure it does.
entendre. Yeah. So I started working with him, with and for him, and he actually um, invited me to come and work in his office, even though I had my own graphic design business at the time. He wanted me to come be there so that I could do his newsletter, and he paid my rent in the office, and that was the exchange. I did his quarterly newsletter, and we became really good friends over at the house all the time. We played racquetball together 3 times a week. Um, I've seen the man naked. That's all you need to know. Is we would go to the gym and then we would shower, and that's how tight we were. Yes, I know. Let's let's keep that. I'll keep that to myself. No details. Um, it's actually funnier seeing him in his skivvies, but that's a whole nother issue. So we became very tight, and it was during that time that I started to drift, I think, from Mormonism, largely because I was meeting a whole bunch of people who were not Mormon. He did a show on Sunday nights, which was really a great show, called Religion on the Line, where he had a rabbi, priest, and minister on the show at least every week, and then sometimes a fourth person, and they would discuss issues from their various religious uh, backgrounds. And it suddenly occurred to me that, oh boy, everybody's got some pretty good excuses, as I would call them now, or good. I was so convinced that my Mormonism was true because I had the burning in the bosom that there was no doubt in my mind. But you start to hear other people, and they have pretty good reasoning within that theological reasoning bubble, and that was part of the drifting away. It was a slow process. It took me a number of years, I guess not that long, maybe 3 years, to where and then I started studying my own Mormon background. I actually became an atheist before I left Mormonism, which was okay.
What?
because Mormonism doesn't have a big G God. There is no big G God in Mormon theology. So atheism, I figured, only related to the big G God, and I was totally okay continuing on with my Mormonism and the little G God, because
Wait,
the Mormon God
what's
is a created being. He is not the creator of all things. There's a little duplet, as man now is, God once was; as God now is, man may become. And so the whole point of Mormonism is for you to come down, you get your body, you hopefully do all the right things, make all the right choices, and then you go to become a god in your own universe, or it's never really clear. Maybe there's just one
Multiverse. I guess it's
cosmos.
another
Yeah,
part of the
maybe there's
multiverse.
just one cosmos, and we
Yeah.
get our own little corner of it to
Hmm.
where we can create our own wonderful world where we get to watch our children commit genocide and rape each other and all that beautiful stuff. When you really think about it, it's a horrible, horrible idea. But
Wait, so do all of the Earths follow the same pattern, and or it's just each one is totally individual?
I think I mean, the understanding that I had, and this wasn't really all that fleshed out within Mormonism, within Mormon theology. My understanding was it all pretty much goes the way it goes. It's a repeating pattern because God is perfect now. The Mormon God is perfect. He's attained exaltation and perfection, and so I will too. And then you got to figure there's only one way to be perfect, right? If there are multiple ways to be perfect, then it's
But I'm trying to
I
think
don't
of
know.
his human creations. There's a fall on every one of the planets, and Jesus, his son, has to be sent on every one of the planets.
Well, you have your own Jesus. You have your own spirit children. That's why you need all the wives, because you got to just pump out billions and billions of spirit children.
Oh,
And then yeah,
I had trouble
it's as
just getting my
crazy
head
as it
wrapped
sounds.
around the Trinity in Catholicism. I just can't
It's as
understand.
crazy as it sounds. So then you get your spirit children, and then you propose a plan. I'm going to create an earth. You're going to go down and get your bodies, and then you have your firstborn, I guess, Jesus, who says, "Okay, and I'll go down and pick up the tab for everybody." And Lucifer says, "No, let's just save everybody and not give anybody freedom." And then there's a war in heaven, which has supposedly happened in our thing. I don't know what they were fighting with, immaterial arrows, or maybe
Lightning
they had
bolts,
muskets. I
clearly.
don't know. Very primitive. Yeah, there we go. And then one third go off with Lucifer, and the other 2/3 go down. And of course, in Mormonism, when I was still in it, the theology was that there was 1/3 who remained neutral, and so they weren't. They still get to go down, but they go down into the black bodies. And that was
And the black bodies, you
literally
mean people from
black
Africa
black
and
people. Yes,
yeah,
yes. And
yeah,
Ooh.
that's why all the crap
yeah.
happens to them. They've
Mm.
since dialed that back and changed it, but when I was growing up, in fact, I think I have the book, right. Yes, it's right here. The Church and the Negro, which explains all of this wonderful stuff. It's horrific. It's truly horrific. Some of the most awful stuff you'll ever read. Here comes my dog. Did you want to say something? Did you want to say something? No,
We want her to say something.
no,
Oh,
she's just she's just making sure she knows where Daddy is. She's 15. She's very old. She can't hear anymore.
oh,
I don't know why I talk to her still, but I do.
it's okay. I do the same
She's
thing.
going to get a drink. She's going to go get a drink. It's okay. Yeah. So there were a number of I think. I mean, the big thing for me that finally pushed me out was I think it was September of 1992. They excommunicated 6 Mormon intellectuals and feminists and a historian, as I like to say, D. Michael Quinn, who that was a Galileo moment for me, where I thought he's writing history. If he's wrong, just show him where he's wrong. But they couldn't show him where he was wrong, and he was making waves, so they kicked him out because, in essence, the truth was heresy for Mormons, and that was the final straw for me. So I tendered my resignation. I literally wrote my letter asking them to take my name off the records of the church, and then expected they would all come running to keep me, and they basically just said, "Hey, see you, don't let the door hit you on the way out," because I had started maybe causing a few problems here and there, asking questions I shouldn't have
So how did
been
that go
asking.
over with your family? I know Mormons don't technically shun people, but like sometimes it doesn't go well.
So the strange thing is my mother, who's the true believer, took it really well, and my father was upset. And part of me, I joke around saying he was upset because he didn't know you could leave, which he did years late. He didn't officially leave, but he became an atheist at 82 after my mom died. He did that by reading the Bible. So I recommend Bible reading to everyone I know. And it was the first time he'd read the book all the way through, and he had me come in and sit down. He said, "I want to talk to you about something." And he pulled out the Bible, and I thought, oh no, what's happened? He said, "Have you read this thing?" And I said, "Yeah, Dad, I've read it. Yeah, many, many times." This is just the biggest piece of shit. It's just the sickest there's so much sick stuff in this thing. He was so outraged. And I was like, oh, I love this man. So we kind of like, he was born in 1918. I was born rather late in life. And he was a Roosevelt, an FDR Democrat his whole life. And of course, growing up Mormon, I was a Ronald Reagan conservative. And so at the end of his life, the last 15 years, we had this great convergence where I became a liberal Democrat and he became an atheist. And we just got along like gangbusters for the last 15 years, which almost made up for everything. He was a great grandfather to my daughter. And so we got along really well those
Oh,
last
I
15 years.
love
It was kind of
that.
nice. Yeah. Isn't that a great story?
That's a really great story. I mean, and it's so different than how it sounds like it's going to go when your 82-year-old dad is, bringing out the Bible to ask you if you've read it. No one sees that twist coming, and I'm
I
so glad
know.
you
I know.
did.
I know. He was brave in many ways. And I think I got some of his intellectual braveness, or that's not the right word for it, but he didn't fear anything like his whole life. He just had no fear. And I love that about him. I'm not that way, but I try to be, and I try to emulate that because I think that's a wonderful, wonderful way to be.
Oh, so is that part of what inspired you to do your Mr. Deity program?
No, the Mr. Deity show came about because of the tsunami, the Asian Indian Ocean tsunami. Is that what it's called? The Indonesian tsunami? I don't know what to call it. But that horrible thing that happened, was it Christmas Eve or Christmas Day? I can't remember. 2003?
Was it Boxing Day? I think it was Boxing Day.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember the one you're talking about. Yes, it was just
Yes.
devastating.
250,000 people gone
Yeah.
like that. And my brother-in-law at the time was Sri Lankan, and he lost all kinds of people that he knew. And he was Mormon, and he somehow still found God in all of it. And it baffled me. And I wrote this little musing where God is talking to it was just a thing that I don't know why I wrote it. I didn't write it with any intention to create a show or anything like this, but I wrote this little script where Mr. Deity's talking to his assistant after creation about all the evils that they're going to allow and how they don't really need the natural disasters component because there's already more than enough suffering and evil to go around to make it not obvious that God exists. And then I shot that to all of my actors friends. I had done a movie. I had written and directed a movie in 2002 that played all the festival circuit in 2003 and did well. And we were looking to remake that because it was shot on such a low budget, but Miramax and Focus Features really liked it, and they said remake it and remake it with these changes, script changes and whatnot. And so while we were trying to raise money for that, I contacted all my actor friends, and nobody wanted to play Mr. Deity. Nobody wanted to do it. I don't know if they thought it was too edgy or, at the time, the atheist movement hadn't really, this was 2004, so it's pre-Dawkins, pre-God Delusion, pre-Sam Harris. And so we had a bad day shooting one day in Santa Barbara, and Jimbo, I used to shoot a lot with him, who plays Larry on the show. We were driving back after an 18-hour day with no breaks, and he said, "We're getting too old for this. Why don't let's shoot those Mr. Deity?" Because at that point I'd written 2 more. He said, "Let's shoot those Mr. Deity things and maybe put them up on YouTube. Maybe we can get the money to remake Killing the Dream." And I said, "Okay, let's do that. Who's going to play what?" And he said, "You play Mr. Deity and I'll play Larry." And I'd never acted before in my life, and I'd been behind the camera all the time, and both as a director and a cinematographer, but didn't have any acting experience. So we shot that first one 3 times because I was so bad. That first episode.
Where did the name come from?
You know, I wanted to call it originally Mr. God. And when I was trying to secure the website, Mr. God, somebody had already taken it. And I thought, Mr. Deity, I'll go with Mr. Deity and let's see if I can do that. And that was it. That worked. And I think it worked out so much better. I like it. I like it a lot better because it's not so in your face. And plus, when the British say it, they say it so lovely, Mr. Deity. The Canadians too, usually, Mr. Deity. Sounds so nice.
You had Richard Dawkins on as a guest, and I recall when he pronounced it that way. And
Mr.
that was the first
Deity.
time I'd ever heard it said that way.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. So that's how it all got going. 3 months later, we're sitting in rooms talking with Sony and other big media companies, and then we did the second season with Sony, which turned out to be a bit of a disaster. And then
Oh,
we
how
sat.
so?
Well, they wanted to create a YouTube competitor called Crackle, and it went nowhere. Do you know of Crackle? Anyone here know of Crackle? Show of
I
hands.
remember
Oh,
Crackle. I
yeah,
don't know how to use it or if it still exists, but I remember that was a thing that for a hot minute everyone was saying, "Oh, you need to get Crackle," and I was like,
right,
"What for?"
right.
And I'm still not sure what exactly it was, but I think I had it at one time.
Penn and Teller were on it too, but we were the first web show to be bought up by a big six media company, and we were on the front page of the business section of the LA Times here, and it was very heady um, and they paid well, but it just went nowhere. And they were good enough though to give us the show back and say, do what you want with it, and that's what we've been doing ever since. Although if we want to make a movie, we have to do it through them. But it's hard to raise money for. I do have a great movie idea, Mr. Deity Goes to Hell, where he has to come down
Nice.
and live as a human for 30 days without his power. Lucy makes a bet with him, of course. And
Will your ex agree to appear as a Lucy?
I don't know if she would or not. Maybe if we got a movie deal, I don't know. She may not be interested at all in acting.
Now,
But
So
tell us the background
I know
here,
Jesus would be
Lucy.
in. I know Jesus and Larry would be in. They'd be in a heartbeat. But we were
So
actually
for
talking with
our
someone.
for our listeners who haven't seen the program, who are these characters?
So Mr. Deity is a god, which is very Mormon. He's not the god; he's a god. And this universe is a rogue universe because he couldn't pass the psych test for a creation event, and so they went rogue and started their own universe with a very low budget, which is why the place is such a mess.
Explains a lot.
And his long-suffering assistant is Larry on the show. And
Who I always thought of as the Holy Ghost, but he's never really referred to that way.
he's never referred to as that way. And we do have an episode about that called Mr. Deity and the Ghost that people can watch if they want to understand it a little more, in the Mr. Deity cosmography. And then we have Lucy, who's Lucifer, now my ex-wife. And then we have Jesus, who Mr. Deity can never remember his name. He constantly calls him Jesse. And that's the only other episode that we shot multiple times because Sean couldn't get the character the first time we shot the show. He didn't quite have it. And then he told me later, I gave him one piece of direction before the second shoot, which was, you're not my first choice. So Mr. Deity has seen a bunch of people, offered them the gig, and nobody wanted it. And so we end up with this guy. So that's who Jesse Jesus is in the Mr. Deity cosmography. There's a couple other characters. We had Tom Villot playing John the Baptist for a while, and Jared Kaufman playing Timmy, who's Mr. Deity's IT guy. The first John the Baptist episode is fun because it's just a head. That's one of my favorite episodes, and they can't find his body. Mr. Deity can't find his body because he doesn't keep his all-knowingness turned on, so they can't find the body.
And I already mentioned that you had Dawkins on. You had several other quite well-known guests from the humanist atheist community. Can you name a few?
Yeah, we've had one of my dear friends, Michael Shermer, who I've known now for 30 plus years. and who really got me into the skeptic movement. Because when I left religion, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who my people were. And this is a strange story as well. I was a conservative at the time, remember, and I'm listening to Dr. Laura. And this is before Dr. Laura has gotten religion. And she's written an article about false memories in a magazine called Skeptic. She was on the board of Skeptic magazine at the
Wow, that's
time.
bizarre.
And so I bought the magazine to read her article. And then I read the rest of the stuff in there, and I said, these are my people. This is it. This is how I think now. This is what and they had a meeting every Sunday at Caltech where they had a lecture and stuff. And I started going to those, and I met Michael, and Michael and I have very similar backgrounds in many, many ways. He's 10 years older than me, but we hit it off, and we've been friends ever since. So Michael's been on the show. We had P.Z. Myers on the show. Who else have we had on the show? I'm blanking. This is my memory problem with my chemo. I can't pull up the. I know we've had quite a few other people, but I can't.
Did you ever
think
get James Randi?
I didn't, but I did shoot some videos with James Randi at a TAM, one of the TAMs years and years ago. I knew Randy for years too, because they were always having him out to the skeptic events, and then I would get invited to go to the dinner afterwards, and then I would get to hang out with Randy and chat with him. He was amazing. He's truly one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life.
I was watching a ton of the episodes earlier this week. I love just having it on in the background. That's great. Just kind of, it's comedy, but it also makes you think, like you mentioned. So,
Right.
how do you come up with all the ideas for these little short episodes? Do you have to do a lot of research? I mean, are you spending a lot of time basically reading the Bible to come up with these topics to sort of poke at?
Well, I'm a little obsessed with religion. I have always found it fascinating. I started like studying Eastern religions when I was 14. And I don't think it's coincidental that that's just right after I did mushrooms a few times. I did have a period where I look back on it, and I really think my mind opened up because of some of the psychedelics that I was using when I was younger. Like I said, I was doing music younger, and I got into bands with guys who were much older than me because I was really good for my age, and they opened me up to a whole bunch of interesting things. And it's never died down for me. Mormonism is absolutely endlessly fascinating, and I still read stuff on Mormonism because it blows my mind. I like history a lot too, so I read a lot of. I just finished a book called 381 AD about the Theodosius and the takeover of the Roman Empire by the Christians. It's endlessly fascinating, and then because of what I do, I watch a lot of excusigists doing their thing so that I can either respond, and I'm usually coming up with the ideas usually hit me because I'm listening to one of these I don't want to say horrible people, but these terrible people, these people who are trying to sell people the snake oil of religion. And I've been thinking about this stuff for so long that it's now, I try to come up with new ways to attack the problem, novel ideas. And the thing that I wanted to do originally, once I realized I had this character and this theme to work with, what I really wanted to do very early on, probably by the 4th episode, maybe a little later, because the early ones are just funny, but I wanted to start poking the bear. I wanted to start and I thought the one thing that I have here that I can do that nobody else is really doing is concretize the abstract ideas of religion in a way with conversations that, if there really were a being, like if there were a trinity, and you're going to be doing this universe and all of this stuff, at certain point, you'd have to make decisions, right? And you'd have to have conversations about how it's going to be done and what it's going to work. And those conversations, when you really think them through, are so stupid. They're just so incredibly stupid. Like one of my favorite episodes is my latest episode called Mr. Deity and the Consent, where he's instantiating everyone for just a moment so that he can get their consent to create them because he wants to do free will, which is what you'd really have to have. If you were going to give us true free will, we would have to make the choice to come down and do this thing, knowing all of the potential dangers and risks and horrors and all of that stuff. Then you'd have the okay. But there's a line in there where Mr. Deity says to him, you know, I need your consent to create you in this world. And the character says, which is just me, by the way, because I'm made in his image. He says, well, you're all knowing, you're all powerful, you're all loving. What could go wrong, right? To which Mr. Deity says, yeah, right. Well, I mean, but it's, you know, it's not going to be all good. Why not? And you know, you realize that the whole idea is so absurd that you have an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving God that, like, the last thing you would expect, a world filled with horrendous evil and suffering, like beyond anything that could be possibly necessary for us to do whatever you want to say that God is doing with this place. And again, this is that thing that I was, so the Godsheimer's, if you forget that God is all knowing, then you can say, oh, well, he's down here. We're down here to be tested to see if we'll make the right choices. Well, of course, he knew what choices we were going to make, so that's a problem. Or you want to, you know, whatever you're going to say, because God couldn't create certain goods without, you know, allowing certain evils. You can't have bravery if you don't have the risk of danger and suffering. Okay, so you're saying that God didn't possess every good before he created evil? Is that what we're saying? Oh, no. Every God is all good. Yes, he's infinitely good. But it gives you a really good chance to have these discussions kind of in a comedic way, which I think is very powerful, because laughing is an involuntary response. So when you laugh at something, it's your brain telling you, oh, there's some truth in there. There's some truth in there that I may not want to acknowledge, but I just did. I just kind of did because I just laughed at it. Whoops. And I think it's very powerful. I think it's probably the most powerful medium to just slide that little sliver of doubt in there.
So for people who don't know, you also have other web series.
Yes.
And in those, you still inject humor, but they're sort of more on the serious side because they're not skits, right?
They're direct.
You want to tell people about those?
Yeah. So the main show that I do now is called The Way of the Mister, which was a response to Kirk Cameron and Banana Man. Why can't I think of Ray Comfort? Ray Comfort and Kirk Cameron created something called The Way of the Master. And I thought, well, I got to create The Way of the Mister. And that's more, it started out as kind of a skits. Our first episode is kind of a 60 minutes style episode where they're talking to a psychologist who is he's trying to turn everyone bisexual because he thinks being one or the other is very limiting. And it was a play on reparative therapy. In fact, it's called reparative therapy, if I remember. And we've done all kinds of stuff under the umbrella of The Way of the Mister. But most of the time now, it's just me talking to camera in front of green screen with these little, I hope they're clever pop-ups that kind of make you laugh, even though the subject may be serious. And I do write them to be a little funny, but they're generally more serious in the delivery, the direct delivery of me speaking, and then funny in the pop-ups or the photos that I use or manipulate or create or whatever.
So the problem with this is when I watch YouTube, I often am not watching. I'm just listening. I'm multitasking. Yes. I'm doing something else.
Right.
But for yours, I have to watch them. I have to watch.
Yes. Them. Yes. People tell me they will often just watch once and just listen to me, and then the next time they'll often just focus on the pop-ups, and so I get multiple views, so I'm happy about that.
That's
too.
good. So do you do the pop-ups like, are you thinking of those as you're writing the script, or do you, in editing, you say, well, I should add something here?
No, I really should though. I want to try to start that. I think they would be better, but I always put them in after, and I've always seen them as a bit of me heckling myself, because some of them are very self-deprecating when they're not making a funny point aside. But it's kind of fun to, it's the challenge, because I'm always doing those at the very tail end of the edit, and there's some kind of fun challenge I think that I like, that I have to now all of a sudden, there's an adrenaline rush of, I gotta come up with something funny to pop up here.
And you've learned to record yourself like off the screen, like I'm doing now, so that you have one portion of the screen where you can clearly
Yes.
put it, right? Yeah.
Well, when I'm shooting, I shoot myself dead center, because I can move myself anywhere because it's on green screen.
Ah, okay.
So I do that all in post. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I even make myself a little bigger when I move to the left side of the screen, so that there's some variation between stuff.
So there are quite a few episodes of those, and I've seen you posting recent versions right up to last week, I think, Way of the Mister. Right.
Well, I just did this is the only time I've ever done this. I just did a 6-part series taking down Tom Holland and his BS claims from his book Dominion, about how we have Christianity to thank for the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution, which only took them 1700 years to figure it out for us.
I'm sorry, the book is called Dominion?
Dominion. My cover,
Dumb.
Dominion, D-U-M-B, Minion. I made my own cover that's an exact replica of his title, of his cover, rather, by the way.
Outstanding.
So that's one of my fun pop-ups. And I literally pop that cover up every time I use the word Dominion, because he talks about it a lot as Christianity. The idea is that Christianity is the waters we were all swimming in when the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution. So we have Christianity to thank, which also means we have Nazism and communism and every other horribleism to thank that rose in Christian waters. But he doesn't mention that. It's only the good stuff. It's only the good stuff, according to Tom.
Of course.
And in no way connected to, the Bible in any way, because there's nothing in the Bible about observing nature and speculating as to its causes and then running experiments, and nothing in there like that. So it just magically happened that we got the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment out of Christianity. It's amazing.
And how does he square this banana, where out of Christianity came the scientific revolution and the scientific method and empiricism and all of that, and which tends to dispute the claims made in the Bible and by the church?
Apparently, you need all of these basic ideas like this. I mean, some of this stuff is literally stuff he says, like, you need the ideas that there is a rational world and a rational being behind creation. Now, if you've read the book, I don't know if you've read the book, but there's no rational being there. There's an absolute idiot who doesn't know that the sun is just reflecting light and not another source of light. He knows nothing about female anatomy, and that a woman's hymen can break either before intercourse or even not after intercourse. This being is the stupidest being. And when I play Mr. Deity, I'm just playing him right out of the book, the character. He's an absolute moron who knows nothing about his own creation. But this is the rational being that we supposedly needed to even start thinking of the world in a rational way. That's interesting. That's his argument. Now, the biggest problem is that the Greeks were doing all of this 500-600 years before Jesus, so that's a bit of a problem. But hey, we don't need to talk about the Greeks and the Romans. In fact, all he does is shit on the Greeks and the Romans. Can I curse here? Is that okay?
Hell no. Yes, of course you can.
Yeah, all he does is talk about how awful the Greeks and the Romans were, and how we're not really connected to them in any way, really, because of all the awful things that they do. In fact, he uses the example of Caesar um, killing so many, a million Gauls, and enslaving another, and mentions how horrible that they were because their entire economy was based on slavery.
And
Whoops.
this is
Oh, wait.
unlike things that are happening in the Old
Unlike
Testament.
things that the Christians ever did. So we can't be connected to the Greeks and the Romans because they were awful. Look at the terrible stuff that they did. Doctrine of discovery. So it's just unbelievable. And just as I was finished writing these 6 pieces, I found out that my friend Richard Carrier, who is a PhD in ancient history, had written this great article taking him down, which I didn't know about. I would have written a better series, but I think I did okay. I was pretty happy. My last episode is a little bolder because I finally got some of Richard's input on things for that final episode before I wrote it. But yeah, I'm very proud of it. I'm very happy with it. It's doing well. People are really liking it.
Yeah, I definitely encourage people to go back and watch a lot of the way of the Mr. in addition to Mr. Deity. So, and we've mentioned Prager.
And those episodes, by the way, are all called "Stop the Steal," part 1 through 6.
Yeah.
Oh
And what
boy.
they're stealing is the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution from non-Christian thinkers, or at least having nothing to do with Christianity.
So you have at least 2 other series that we haven't mentioned yet, right? One about Mr. D Goes to Washington, which I don't know if you're still producing.
Yeah, I started doing that when I saw the threat. I felt like I couldn't keep quiet, and I felt like I had to speak out and do some political stuff. I don't do really any Mr. D Goes to Washington anymore. That's kind of a dead series.
Okay, how about the God Distraction?
I also did the God Distraction, which I really like and I need to finish. I just haven't had the time because I have to get out so many episodes per month now to keep myself in food and gas. So those were longer. Those are all longer episodes. Some of them are 20-minute long pieces, and they're my argument for what I call apatheism. I'm an apatheist. I don't care if God exists, even if God does, because we can literally know nothing about his existence, his character, or his will, making him completely irrelevant to our lives. So that was my argument for that. And then I do Prager FU, which is a takedown of PragerU content, and his weekly column too. I'll take on his weekly column as well. And did we talk about this? We only talked about this in the pre-chat, but I used to be really good friends with Dennis Prager, so worked with and for him, and
yeah, that is just amazing.
We were very chummy.
Yeah, you had mentioned that.
Yes.
Yeah, that is amazing. So have you had any contact with him recently since you started that web series?
Not since 2007. He loved the early Mr. Deity episodes. And then we had a personal falling out, not regarding religion, or he was fine with me being an atheist the whole time. But we had a personal falling out over how he treated a mutual friend, which was despicable. And that was it for me. I was done with him.
Wow, he didn't have a problem with you being an atheist, though.
No, Dennis is not a, I mean, I can't speak for who he is now. When I knew him, he was a very different person. I mean, he was vehemently anti-Trump during the primaries. And then Trump got the nomination, and Dennis realized, I'm not going to have a radio show if I don't turn over, and if I don't bend over. And that's exactly what happened to Michael Medved, who was a good friend of his, who had a show also on the Salem Radio Network. He remained a never Trumper, and he doesn't have a radio show anymore. So Dennis just totally bent over, and no lube or anything. So he's become just horrible in the time since, and he was a very different person when I knew him and when we were friends. So
Wow.
we had that falling out, and we haven't talked since. And in fact, we got into some pretty bitter personal stuff, and I exposed some of this on his Facebook channel once, and I got a lawyer letter from him. So to which I
Wow.
responded back, "Well, tell me what's not true, and I'll stop saying the not true stuff." Never heard
Hmm.
back. Yeah,
How interesting.
yeah,
Well, yeah, that's interesting to hear all that personal backstory. I was thinking, that it would have been a lot more, I guess you see people online as their online personality, and you tend to forget
right,
that that's a show, that's a character,
right,
it's a persona,
right.
that's not necessarily them.
Exactly,
Interesting.
exactly. Yeah.
Well, speaking of an online persona,
Should
what do
I go
you
get him?
say? Yes, could
Let
we
me,
talk
let
to
me,
Mr.
let me,
Deity?
Mr. D, Mr. D, where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay, they want you now. Okay, all right.
Isn't it amazing to have such a great connection to the creator of everything? Like,
Hey,
well, who else can do this?
hi,
Welcome.
Oh,
Do you know who we are?
my people. I hope. I hope. I guess you're all my people. Not that I've treated
oh,
you that way in the past, but I'm trying to be more inclusive. Inclusive, is that the word? Inclusive.
Yeah, I think you're
close,
looking for
Yeah,
inclusive.
close.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Well,
So
I see your name has changed to Mr. Deity, so I mean, we have to confess that this is a recovering from religion program. I hope that's okay with you.
Oh, that's fine. Which religion?
Oh, all of them.
pretty much,
All of them.
except Scientology. I've never had a call from a Scientologist.
Oh, well, they're not. I don't think they're really a religion, are they? I don't think so. Let me ask the Germans. Hold on one second. No, the Germans say no. The
That's
Germans
true.
say no.
Only in the
Yeah,
U.S., I guess.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, you gotta honor, the loyal opposition. So I'm good. I'm good.
so
Without Lucy, I'd be nothing really.
I've always had a question because Brian Keith Dalton, or as I said, Mr. Sexy, went to get you, and you look fairly similar. So is he channeling you, or are you
Well,
appearing in his persona for some reason? What's the deal with
no,
that?
I created him in my image because I
Ah.
knew this would happen
So when
because
it says
this
that
was
I
before
created
I
humanity in my image, you really just meant one person.
just him, yeah, mostly. But I did that all before I turned off my all-knowingness. So everybody else just kind of gets what they get,
Can you
you
explain
know.
that to people? I've heard that referred to before, but I'm not sure I understand. What does that mean, turning off your all-knowingness?
Well, when you're all-knowing, it's just a real pain. I mean, you can't enjoy a surprise party, right? You can't enjoy the ending of M. Night Shyamalan movies, even the good one. And it's just something that I never enjoyed. I was incredibly smart when I turned it on, and every now and then I have turned it back on for a moment or two just for various purposes. I think you've seen that on the show somewhere. And everything that everybody's going to ask, everything they're going to say before they say it. And I'm impatient, and then I just ramble right over them, answering their questions before they've asked them, or responding to whatever they're going to say before they've even said it. It's a problem for everybody. But it also, I realized this after I did it. While I'm not quite as bright, I have a really good excuse now for all the stuff that didn't go right, because as you know, I created our universe. It's a rogue universe. We didn't have official permission, and we had to cut some corners, including the good to evil ratios. And so I get a lot of flack for that. But hey,
Who,
I didn't know. I
who did
didn't
you have to
know.
apply to? I'm confused
The
about that.
conglomerate, the conglomerate.
Is this like the
There's a
continuum? Is this like the
there's a
continuum?
conglomerate controlling the entire cosmos,
Uh-huh.
and if you decide to leave the void, which I did at some point, my parents, null and void. I think you've heard of them probably before. I was there for a very long time, might be forever. I don't know. But it just, when there's nothing, right? When you're in a void of timeless nothingness, it gets really boring really quick. And, I couldn't even have, null and void were kind of, I hate to say this because otherwise they were very good parents, but they wouldn't let me have anything. I couldn't have anything, nothing. So even if I wanted a sofa, they were against it. And at a certain point, you realize, who am I if I can't have my own sofa? So I left null and void and entered this cosmic realm. And then the second I got here, I was informed by this fellow, Larry. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he greeted me. I guess he knew I was coming out of the void. I don't know how they know all that, but he greeted me and told me, "You're a god," and asked me what I
So is
wanted
Larry
to
a
do.
god also? Is Larry a god?
No, Larry, please, please. Oh, that's so embarrassing for you. No, he was. He's just. You know what? I don't even know what he is. For all I know, he's a satyr. But have we ever really seen the bottom half? I don't think I've ever seen the bottom half of Larry now that I'm thinking about it. So he could totally be a satyr. But he said, "You're a god. What do you want to do?" And my initial urge was that I really wanted to blow things up. So we figured out a way to do that. Although, like I said, I couldn't pass the psych test for a proper
So who was
creation
giving you
event.
the psych test?
That was our psychologist in the conglomerate. I think we have that on tape too somewhere. She asked a lot of questions. Boy, I did not like her at all.
Who's
Made
in
me
this
feel like,
conglomerate?
who knows, right? I mean, as Larry said, one of my first questions, because he told me, "You're a god," and I said, "Oh, well, I'm not the god," and he said, "No, we don't even know if there is a the god. Nobody knows that. But there's an organization and they run everything. They're kind of, I don't want to say mafia-like, but
This sounds a little bit like the
mafia-like."
Q Continuum in one of the episodes of I don't know if you know about the show Star Trek, and there's this character who claims he's a god.
I think Gene Roddenberry was onto something. He was connected. I don't remember if I gave him any special gifts or revelations or anything like that. Probably did, but my memory's faulty too, because when your all knowingness turns off, you know that saying, "Use it or lose it." You know that saying,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, when you're all knowing, you don't have to use it, right? So when I shut everything off, my brain just doesn't function the way it should. So, but that's, you gotta pick one or the other, right? What are you gonna do? You're gonna know everything everybody's saying, or you're gonna know every choice you're ever gonna make, which means you're not really making the choice.
So
It's
one
a
of the more
trade-off.
interesting conversations I see that you do have recorded is when you're talking to Lucy. And I was like, it seems like she's controlling you in some ways. That seems odd to me.
Well, Lucy's very smart. She's very smart. She's if I turned on my all-knowingness, I'd be much smarter, but she's kind of, she's kind of the brains of the operation. So I let her have her way a lot, because I'm intimidated a little, but also because she's so beautiful. So I have a thing for beauty.
And so Lucy gets to control the underworld, I guess.
Well, this is her world. This is her. This is where she has dominion. And then I get the upstairs area. She has the downstairs. I have the upstairs. And then sometimes we get together and we have a good time. But for the most part, she lets things roll here. She's a little too easy on you people in my book, but you know, what am I going to
What
say?
happened to benevolence? I thought you were benevolent.
To what? What is that word?
benevolent,
Kind,
like
What does that
kind.
what does that mean?
nice,
Nice. Yeah.
takes care of
Oh,
people, doesn't cause harm, that kind of thing.
well, when we went with the, low budget universe, you have to choose how much benevolence you're going to put in it. And I'm all benevolent, and I'm certainly not going to give any of that away. So I couldn't afford to stuff a lot of benevolence in with things. I mean,
So
and
so
plus,
did
what's the fun in that? I mean, you need some drama, right? You need some terrible things happening to create the drama and the excitement and the overcoming and all that wonderful stuff.
and
So,
also sending Jesse down because you needed to do that. So there was needed to be a reason for him to do that.
well, we were gonna send him down. Yeah, we did. We originally the plan was to send him down, but he kept chickening out, and then he realized at a certain point that we had two plans. We were going to go with a 6-day creation event thing, and then the conglomerate found out, and they were going to shut it down. So we had to go boom, bang, bing. We already had the singularity ready, so we just popped it and just decided to go with the organic model of the universe. And of course, once Jesse found that out, he was like, "You don't really need me. You don't need me at all because there's no Adam and Eve, right? There's no trees, there's no snake talking. Why do I have to go down and suffer this horrible thing? Because we didn't. There's no original sin or anything like that." So it was Lucy's idea to come up with the myth of Jesus and
Whoa.
just take a guy who was a pretty good guy. I don't know him. We never met, but apparently he was a nice guy with some nice ideas. Stole a little bit from the Stoics, stole a little bit from the skeptics and the cynics, and I got in trouble with the Romans. I guess those Romans.
Now, are you
Boy, they
disassociating him from you for some reason? Because in the book I read, he's your son
No,
or
no, no,
you.
no.
I'm
I,
confused
I,
about that.
no, no, no. He's still my boy, to the extent that he's my boy, which is not much. But he still got the good parking spot. That's all he really cared about. He just wanted the good parking spot and the good benefits. He has excellent medical. I mean,
Well, he
well,
needs it
I
because
should,
Catholics are
I
eating
should.
him all the time. So,
Yes, that's true. That's true. Yeah, yeah. So. A lot of
yeah.
repair going on there. Yeah, yeah. But they have
Well,
that skin now, that graft thing that you can do that put on, and then it fixes them up real quick.
ew. Well, we've got a lot of questions in addition to that from the audience if you're prepared, but I've got to say, the main question that people asked is, what the fuck? Um, do you have a response to that, Mr. Deity? You know.
No, no, no. I don't believe in questioning. People should know this already. There should be no questions. You
Ooh.
just head down, move forward. One cross each, and that's the way you grin and bear it. It's not yours to question why, is it? Right? I mean, I
Well,
don't question you guys. I don't question you guys all the time. So
Oh,
fine.
well,
Yeah.
that's fair.
unfortunately, we actually publicized you appearing by saying people could ask you questions. So I think we're going to have to give you a few more.
All right, fine. Go ahead. Not like I don't get this all day long. You should hear my voicemail. Why did my puppy
All
have to
right.
die? Why did my puppy have to die? Ugh,
Hmm.
so boring.
Well, similarly, yes. So apparently, I guess this is similar to the what the fuck. Mr. Deity, brain-eating amoebas? Why?
So, like I said, we couldn't go with the 6-day creation thing where I'm in control of everything. We just had to roll the dice and see how things go. I guess I probably should have put some limits on the evils and what I was going to allow. I did a few things, right? Like I made it so that you guys couldn't hurt each other merely with your thoughts. I think that's a pretty good idea, right? Nobody ever thanks me for that one. Nobody ever
Well, except
accidentally
Yuri
steps into a void.
Yuri Geller says he can bend metal, so I'll bet he could hurt people with his thoughts.
Yeah, he bends something, I'll tell you, but it's not metal. But no one ever accidentally just steps into a void. You're welcome. Okay, you're welcome. So let's stay positive. Everyone's always looking at the negatives. You gotta accentuate the positive. That's what I've heard. That's what Sinatra told me that actually.
Well, in that case, let me see if we've got any positive questions here for you. I'm
Yeah.
We have somebody asking a mind reading trick, Kari. You see that one?
Ooh, I do. This is a good one.
64. 64.
Ooh, that wasn't the question. That could be the answer to the question, and you'll know who asked this,
It's an answer
presumably
to
being
somebody's question,
all-knowing.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes.
42?
Yeah, so
42.
I think someone did ask that question, the question that answer
Okay.
goes with.
All right,
So
good.
you
Okay,
got
see, there we go.
one. You
Right.
got one. Somebody else is wondering if you know what question they're going to ask, and you'll know who they are, presumably.
Well, like I said, I don't because I turned my all-knowingness off.
Oh.
If I turned it back on, this interview would just be boring as can be. You'd
we
never get a word in
like to learn
edgewise.
here.
You'd never get a word in edgewise.
What's the worst thing that you experience when the moment you shut off? Well, you turn back on your all-knowingness, like
Masturbation. Masturbation. So much.
Oh, you have to see everyone doing it?
Yes. Yes. It's horrible. It's just so horrible. And the faces they make. Oh. Oh. Awful. Yeah, now you get it. Right? Now you get it. I can see some acknowledgement here of how horrible all of that is. It's terrible. You people are disgusting. Really, seriously. But I love you. I love you. I got it.
We can tell.
Yeah.
Well, along those lines, I'll ask another one because it's on topic. Someone else was wondering, do gay people need to be circumcised? Does anyone need to be circumcised?
That's an interesting question. I honestly don't know where that came from. I don't know whose idea that was. It was never mine. People have attributed it to me. I am not. I have no interest in foreskins. I gotta be honest with you. I just have no interest in foreskins.
What's your guess as to why that became so important to the Jewish nation?
I think it was a dare. My personal feeling is it was a dare. It was like maybe Moses and Abraham said, we got to come up with a sign of the covenant. And Aaron probably, because Aaron was such a prankster. He was such a prankster. I think he probably said to Moses, let's have them cut off the tip of their penises. Let's see if they'll do that. Let's see how devoted they'll be. And Moses was probably like, nah, they're never going to do anything like that. And then all of a sudden it's a thing. It's a thing. It's ridiculous. I don't know. That's a horrible idea. So no, gays don't have to be circumcised. Nobody has to be circumcised. That was a terrible idea.
Well, we're all
Paul was
glad
a
to hear
genius.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Glad we can cross that off. All right, what else? What else, Rob?
I like the sort of the design question about why we design the way we are. So let's ask that. Euphemistically, it says, why is the playground located right next to the dump?
Well, again, our designs for the 6-day thing were much better. Everything would have been much better. But, the other problem we had with it is it's not just a matter of whether the conglomerate would give us permission to create this universe. It was getting the funds. So it was a lot about funding. When we spun it off into an organic thing, we just thought, let's let this, what is it called? A natural erection, natural selection. Let's let the natural selection do what it does, and we'll see. Who knows? We might get something like, the common misconception, of course, is that you people are the ultimate in the process.
Well, yeah.
And that's not true at all. The species I'm really interested in isn't going to happen for another 14 billion years. So You
But wait, the
guys are
Earth's not
just
supposed to last that long. The sun's going to burn out way
no, no,
before.
no, not on. It's not in this galaxy. No, it's not in this galaxy. In fact, it's not the galaxy that I'm really interested in hasn't even come about, which is why I play so much golf with Zeus, because we're just killing time at this point.
Oh, oh, we're not the
Yeah.
main characters? Oh,
No,
that's
no, 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 no.
disappointing.
In fact, on in this world, the reason that I let everything run is because I really wanted dogs. I love dogs. So
Hmm.
take care of the dogs for me, if you would, because they're the species that I really like. They're the ones that get to come to heaven with me, not you people.
Oh,
That's you. I know you guys all think, oh, we're going, and the
See,
dogs aren't. Yeah, right, right.
Mr.
You
Deity
guys are
did get
going.
a question right, right? Didn't we have a
you
question about that?
predicted a question. Someone did ask
Ah,
that. If animals go to heaven or hell, or what
There we
yeah.
about
go.
crocodiles? Is it all of
It's
them, or is it just dogs?
well, the crocodiles are and the dinosaurs are difficult because they just consume so much resources, and they're really dangerous. So the
Oh.
really dangerous animals, they go to a separate heaven. They have their own heaven where they're all eating each other all the time, and they just reincarnate almost immediately as themselves. I think it's kind of a fun system. And then all the rest of it, like it's me and a lot of cats and dogs, and raccoons. I love raccoons. They're awesome too, and not crazy about possums. We're still debating whether we're going to let the possums into this heaven or have them get eaten. But
So wait, so who's
yeah,
the we? You said we're debating.
me and Lucy and Larry and Jesus.
Lucy gets to say as
Is
who
it
goes to heaven.
Jesus? No,
That,
Jesse. Sorry.
that doesn't seem right.
Lucy has a say in everything.
Huh.
I kind of made her a deal at the beginning. If she was gonna take the job and become my loyal opposition, she gets a say.
Oh, wow.
But I predicted that one. Though
Yeah.
that's impressive without my all-knowingness turn
I,
on, you got to admit, right? Huh?
actually, I have to tell you, you predicted a second. I just got down the list. There is what is the meaning of life? And you did say 42.
42. 42.
Mm.
Everybody knows that.
Wow, this is
That's
impressive.
that's
But you didn't know that
all
question
throughout
was going to be there. That
all
was
throughout the conglomerate. That's the word.
Now,
wow.
what are these questions I'm seeing, Rob, about a platypus? Do you know about this platypus question?
Stephanie wrote a poem, which I think we'll have to do when we get to the turn the microphones on because it's
Oh, okay. That'll be for the hangout.
platypus. I don't quite get it, but yeah.
Okay. We'll do the platypus poem in the hangout, so stick around for that. Okay. Let's do a couple more questions for Mr. Deity before we bring Brian back. What do
Ooh,
you
can I ask
say?
the free will question? I like that one.
Yes.
All right. So someone asked, we were taught that you give people free will, but then you create situations and orchestrate events so that a person will make a decision that you want them to make. Why then do you punish people when they fail that?
Well, I'm not really punishing anybody, because like I said, you guys aren't going anywhere after death. You all just die, and that's it. And then the dogs and the cats and the raccoons and dolphins too. Dolphins are coming with me, and we're all going to have a good time. So there's no real punishing. We really wanted to do the free will thing, and I instantiated everybody before creation to ask them if they wanted to do it. They wanted to go down and be part of this, and nobody wanted to do it except for this one guy, Marquis de Sade, Marquis de Sade, something like that. He was
I think
okay with
that's
it.
it.
Yeah, he was okay with it, but we couldn't get anybody else to take an interest. So what we did was we lowered the average IQ another 35 points on everybody so that they would think they had free will, with the exception of Newton, by the way, and then just let it roll. So that was the solution. There's no free will. I hate to tell you people there's no free will because everything's got to fit into my plan, right? It's my plan. You're all my subjects. I mean, why would I give you free will? Please. You gotta do what I want you to do. And you're all doing it. Even if you don't know it. You all are.
So there is one singer I happen to have heard on you recorded several times, disparaging quite often. So she's clearly not doing your free will because she didn't shut up in time.
Who is this?
Why do you hate Celine Dion?
Oh, well, that's Lucy's doing. I had nothing to do with that.
What?
I had to give her a few little,
So Lucy
incentives
created Celine
to
Dion?
take the job. And Michael Bublé. Yes, right. Absolutely. And the Village People. Though we've never mentioned them before. But
Okay.
that's all Lucy's doing. Like I said, it's her world down here. When it's convenient for me to say that.
Okay.
All right. Well, I've got one more question for you, and maybe Rob will have one more. But okay, we've had a couple of questions on this one, and it seems like you're giving us great answers to these questions. Some of them are a little vague, but I'm hoping you can give us more specifics on this one. Nobody understands the Trinity. Are y'all all one thing? You and Jesse and Larry, the Holy Spirit? What's the deal? Tell us how the Trinity works.
We tried to figure it out ourselves. Jesse and I actually even had a little thing made up where it showed how I'm him when he's me and I'm not him when the other. And we couldn't figure it out. And then I think at a certain point, we realized that we needed to appear to be a monotheistic entity. And so we thought, they're not bright. They'll never realize that this is just complete
Because you lowered our
BS.
IQ.
We lowered your IQ, and that's another thing we threw in because we could. Because, what's the average? 100 IQ for you people there on the planet? It's just, that's the median, right? I mean, some of you get a little more. God love you. But no one's smart enough to figure that out. So, well, the atheist community kind of figured out that it's silly, but the Christians, the IQs there are pretty low. So,
then the Mormons kind of add somebody else into the mix with the Joseph Smith claims.
Yeah, the Mormons got close. I mean, the Mormons got really close because, Jesse and I are not the same person. He's very different. He's such a good-looking fella. And then Larry, who we had him take. I mean, the Holy Ghost job is basically, it's all grunt work, right? It's all grunt work. It's nothing glorious. It's you never get the praise or the worship or anything like that. And we figured we already had him on the payroll, so we wouldn't have to include him as an equal entity. He's already here doing the grunt work. Why not just shove all the the work that that ghosty guy is supposed to do, put it on Larry? And because the guys that we had coming in, applying for the job, not good. Larry's efficient. The one thing I'll say about Larry is he gets the job done, and he bows down when he needs to bow down, and he kisses what he needs to kiss. So that's all we really cared about.
Okay. Well, so I guess the last question I'll ask from the list in this segment is somebody asked, what, if anything, are you actually trying to accomplish as Mr. Deity?
I just wanted to blow stuff up. Like I said, I just wanted some really massive explosion. I love explosions. I've built that into some of your favorite stuff down there, like your movies and stuff. Lots of explosions, so much fun. I love that. Who is that guy? Just everything is exploding all the time. What's it? Michael Bay.
Michael Bay.
Oh,
Yep, we just had that in
anyone was
chat.
ever a prophet, Michael Bay is a prophet. He gets it. Just blow shit up. That's all we really need to do. It's so much fun. It's so much, and it's pretty too. It's so pretty.
So the Cretaceous extinction.
Shiny stuff, shiny.
The
right?
Cretaceous extinction, which basically vaporized like 95% of life on Earth. That was a good day.
That was some fun. I got to be honest with you. You wouldn't believe what we had to do to get the asteroid to hit in just that right spot. I mean, it was a lot of effort, but so worth it. So worth it.
Okay.
It's amazing.
Well,
Yeah.
I know we all feel a lot safer now, having heard your answers to all of these questions. We can sleep easier knowing that you are not real.
Right? That's why I'm
Yeah.
here. Or not.
And we appreciate that. Or not. Yes. Oh,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
final question before we get
Oh, how
Brian
many
back.
times am I going to hear that? Oh boy.
I
Go ahead.
know, I know. We got just one more. But you brought it up. Several people are wondering, do you believe in yourself? Do you believe you're real?
That is such an ontological question. I mean, can we even question the question about questions? Is Jordan Peterson here? Can we get Jordan Peterson? Where's Jordan Peterson? I have him write this material for me, but I can't remember what he wrote for me last time. You know, what do you mean by the word believe? What does it mean to believe? And what does it mean to believe in oneself? I mean, really, those are the questions that need to be answered before I can actually answer that question, because ontology is not my thing. It's just not my thing. Not in any way.
It's not.
Study of
Whose is
knowledge
it?
is not your thing.
No. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe I passed that one off to Lucy too. I don't know, but maybe she has an answer. I can't
She seems like a bright
cookie.
cookie. Whatever I've
She
seen.
is. She's very smart, but she's not talking to me anymore. So that's a whole other story. Yeah.
Oh. Well, we'll have to have her on the show sometime, maybe. We do every once in a while have some people from the Satanic Temple come and hang out with us. Hopefully that's not, too controversial.
Again, the loyal opposition. You gotta admire that. Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, we appreciate all of your non-answers, as we have come to love and expect, Mr. Deity. Could we by any chance talk to Brian again?
Yes, I think he's down here. Hold on one second. Yes, hi.
Oh, yay, glad to have you back. That was enlightening. Where do you go when Mr. Deity comes on?
What are you doing? Stop that. Leave that alone. Oh God, he's such a little kid. Sorry, what?
Were you talking to the dog or Mr. Deity just then?
Mr. D, I don't even want to tell you what he's doing. It's embarrassing.
Well,
I told you not to. Don't eat off the floor. Do not eat off the floor.
That's the dog, I hope.
No, that's Mr. Deity. He's just.
So were you in the room for the entire exchange we had with him, or did you go off somewhere?
No. I was in Texas for a bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He sends me away. He never wants me close.
Oh, it's kind of like Q snapping his fingers, and you just go off somewhere.
Bingo. Yeah, I got to see my daughter and my grandson for a bit, so
Very
that was
nice.
nice. Yeah.
That's a nice arrangement.
I love it. I
Better than
love
a flying coach.
It sure is. Well, we got a couple of questions that were for you, not for Mr. Deity. Is it okay if we ask you a couple?
Yes.
All right. So, one question that we got, actually, we got a couple of questions that are about Mormonism. Can we ask you a couple of those?
Sure.
In your capacity as a mere mortal, a mere human, a Formon, yes, indeed. So one person was asking, they heard from a Mormon church that they visited that there are different levels of afterlife depending on how you live your life. Is that true according to the way you grew up believing? And how do you know which one you'll get to?
Yes. So the one thing that I feel very fortunate, there's a couple things I feel very fortunate about in terms of growing up Mormon. And one of them is that Mormonism is universalist. So there is no hell. We'd never heard about hell or felt threatened by hell or anything like that. There are 3 heavens in Mormonism, and they take that from a scripture, one of Paul's epistles, about the third being caught up into the third heaven or something like that. So there's the celestial, the terrestrial, and the telestial kingdom. and everybody goes to one of the places. And we actually did a Mr. Deity episode about this with Joseph Smith, and it's basically the Nordstroms and the Sears and the Walmart of heavens.
Ooh.
And everybody goes somewhere. Now, the thing that I found really cool, I don't know if they teach this anymore, but it was never official doctrine, but there used to be the idea, and I gravitated toward this when I was Mormon, that however you end up at the end of this life, whatever heaven you end up in, you can migrate, because there's the idea of eternal progression within Mormonism. So if you didn't make it, and really, I mean, that's only fair, right? Some guy only gets 40 years. I actually wrote a script about this. I have a whole movie script about this, about some guy getting only 40 years, and he's at the worst point of his life when he dies. He's a terrible person. But another guy was a terrible person at 40, who got to live to 85. And over the course of those next 45 years, he turned his life around and he's become a very good person. He goes to the good place. And so you realize it's just not fair. And we all start out with, some of us have it great and wonderful, and some of us have absolutely crap situations into which we're born. And so, of course, that made sense to me as a Mormon, that, yeah, God wouldn't just, oh, there, you're done. You've had these 5 years, maybe. Sometimes people have 5 years. You had a fly landing on your eyeball every 20 seconds, and now you're dead. And where do you go? Okay, well, I guess because the flies, you get to go to the big kingdom. But there was the idea that you could progress forever, and that ultimately everybody gets to go to the good kingdom and maybe become a god, or if not, you just get, you get the nicer robe. You really want the nicer robe and the good slippers. That's important. And the 24/7 cable news, that's important too. So they
I
don't
could
get
do
that
without that.
they don't get that down in the lower kingdoms. But I think
I'd be
I
okay with
really
that.
think it saved me a lot of religious trauma, not having the idea of hell to contend with, because it's not a Mormon idea. They don't ever talk about it.
Outer darkness
Oh.
is a term I've heard regarding that.
Outer darkness is for people who deny the Holy Spirit, which literally no one can tell you what that is. Like, people ask that within the church all the time, and nobody ever has an answer. I don't know. It's like maybe that you knew everything that was true and right and good, and then you just ran against it or something. I don't know. But who's going to do that? That's just stupid. So
I'm seeing some people raising their
Trump.
hands.
Yes.
I don't know. After that conversation with Mr. Deity, I'm not sure if I want to be on his team. I don't know,
Yeah, no,
man.
you don't. You really don't. You really don't. Although tons of dogs, great dogs, a lot of great
That's
dogs.
true.
You're
That's
probably going to
true.
want to be there. Yeah, you probably are
Yeah.
going to want to be there. But he's not going to let you in. That guy's
Yeah,
not letting
well,
you in. He doesn't like the humans. He's never liked the humans.
and I bet
Humans
the
are
dogs
awful.
the dogs are probably always trying to run away too, because they're pretty good judges of character usually.
That's true too. That's true too.
Maybe
Although I
some
hear
get
he's a
out.
lot like Hitler. He's very nice to the animals. He loves animals. So that makes
Fair
sense
enough.
too. There's another tie-in.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've got time for one more question. Rob, do you have another question for Brian?
I don't see anything in the list I want to ask above one that I want to ask. So you recognize my background? Do you know what that's from?
Welcome. Everything is fine. The closest I can come to it is that there was a radio show here in LA when I was a kid growing up, where they had egg buck was their thing. Everything's going to be okay.
No. So this is the welcome room in the series, which had, I think, 4 seasons, called The Good Place with Ted Danson.
Oh, yes. I am familiar
Okay.
with it.
So
I've tried to watch it a number of times, and I couldn't get through
I
that
was going to
first
ask you about
season.
what you thought of the ending, but you never got there. Okay, so
It
never mind.
didn't spark for me.
So,
Yeah.
all right, let me ask you about, there's a series called Dark Matter 2525. Have you seen that one with
Oh,
God
of course.
Jeffrey?
Yes. I
Yeah,
love
what do you
this
think of
stuff.
that? I sometimes think of like that sort of playing you, the God there, and the little flying angel is sort of Larry.
Yes, absolutely. I didn't even know of that show until years after we started doing Mr. Deity, and somebody turned me on to it, and I think it's brilliant. I think he does a great job. Really, really tremendous stuff.
Yeah,
Very funny, very well done.
yeah, I highly recommend that if other people don't know that.
Yes, absolutely.
And there was a live action TV series starring Daniel Radcliffe, amongst other well-known names, called Miracle Workers. Did you catch that?
I didn't. There was another show everyone was telling me that was a Mr. Deity ripoff with Steve Buscemi.
That's it. That is the one. He
Oh,
played
that
God.
is the one.
He played
Okay.
kind of like a whacked out hippie who was totally incompetent, and he's God. Yeah, it was
Right,
oh, man.
right. Everyone was writing me when that came out saying, "Oh man, are you getting any money from this? Because this is a
Yeah, that's
Mr. Deity
exactly
ripoff."
what I was thinking when I was watching. So
Yeah.
the Daniel Radcliffe is an angel. He's being promoted to I forgot what it was called, but it was an agency in hell that in heaven that answers prayers, and they get little prayer cards from somehow, and they answer them or they don't, and most of them get thrown in the trash. Help me with my kid's cancer, or what,
Right.
I'm going to lose my house. No, can't do that. Can't do that. Find my car keys under the sofa. I can do that one. But Daniel Radcliffe decides he's going to try to actually do something good in heaven. But the Buscemi guy is just standing in the way because he's a total idiot and doesn't give a shit. But the funny part is it became like Mormonism at some point. Halfway through the season, he gets a phone call from his parents. They didn't mention this before, that God has
Right.
parents. And he goes
Right.
to a family dinner, and his mother and father, who are gods, are there, as well as his brother and sister. And all of their worlds are fine. They're making fun of him. Why is your world so messed up? Because he's an idiot.
Right. Right. We had a similar episode recently that I did, which is one of the Mr. Deities from the multiverse comes and visits our Mr. Deity and says that I'm embarrassing all of them, and that I've got
miss
to
that one.
get my act together. Yeah. I can't remember what it's called, but it's one of the recent ones. It's in the
I
Mr.
love it.
Deity season 6 playlist, which is the endless playlist. It never ends because there's no season 7. There's never going to be a season 7. We don't like the number 7. We like the number 6.
Is that because it's 666? It's going to go.
No, it's just that's where we ended. That's where everyone went their own separate ways. I'm hoping to do an episode soon again with Larry. Larry is going to be on an episode. He was on Mr. Deity and the Consent, just his voice. I have a phone call with him at the very end, and that was fun. But yeah, I'm going to get him on camera, as we'll be doing a Zoom call, in fact. So
very nice.
which
I
we did
love it.
very, very frequently on Mr. Deity's Holy Book Pro. That's the kind of computer he uses. Yeah.
That's great. I love it. Well, and let me remind everyone again where they can find you. I've got your link to your YouTube channel for Mr. Deity, or Mr. Deity, as the British folks
Yes.
say.
Yes.
And you mentioned your other playlist on there as well, The Way of the Mister. Where else should people go to find more of your content?
Well, what they really need to go do is go find my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Mr. Deity, no period, MRDEITY.
I'm going to put
Don't
that
go to
in the
Mr.
chat.
Mr. Deity.
There you
Don't go to
go.
Mr. Deity. He's just going to give you a bunch of that stuff about eat only meat. It's silly. It's so silly.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're definitely putting
You'll
those.
lose weight, but you'll die at 42 of a massive heart attack. Yeah.
And let me do some self-proselytizing here. I had an appearance by Mr. Deity also once before when he
Yes.
appeared for an interview for CFI.
Yes.
I'm going to put
Oh,
that video
yeah.
interview in the chat as well.
Yeah, check out Rob's interview
Yes.
and Mr. Deity's appearance there. Absolutely. And well, before we wrap up and go on to the hangout, is there anything else you'd like to leave us with or mention?
Just a big thank you. This was fun. I had a great time. Thanks
Well,
for having
thank
me.
you for
for coming.
coming. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I liked it a lot. And I know people have more questions that they are dying to ask, either you or Mr. Deity. Are you going to be able to stick around for the hangout for a little bit?
I am, and I will answer those questions, but I'm not going to require any deaths.
Well,
Just so
we
you know.
certainly appreciate that.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up then, and don't forget, everybody, join us back here next week, same bat time, same bat channel. And for those of you who are younger than 40, that means we're gonna be in the same place. It's the same link next week at the same time, or just catch us on YouTube. And we've got upcoming this month, Melanie Trachik King. Did I pronounce that right, Rob?
I believe so.
Okay. She's going to talk about why facts don't change our minds next week. And then we have returning speaker Jason, who you may know from the Hangout, is going to be making the case against God also later this month.
Ooh.
Looking
Ooh.
forward to that. So a little bit of an aggressive move there coming right on the heels of Mr. Deity. So we'll see how
He's
that
not going to be
goes.
happy. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, if you need more RfRx in your life between now and then, don't forget to check us out on our YouTube channel. Just search Recovering from Religion, and you can catch some previous episodes. And Rob, where can people find us on the interwebs?
Oh, all over the place. We are on Facebook at Recovering from Religion. There's a Facebook support group page, which is RFR Support Groups, plural, Support Groups Project, RFR Support Groups Project. And we are even on that thing that used to be Twitter, X, at RFR.org. We are on the Instagram at RFR.org also. And we're even on TikTok at Recovering from Religion.
I love it. All right. Well, don't forget to follow us on all of those. And now to wrap us up for the evening with our closing prayer. Just kidding. It's not a prayer. It's David Teach Out. Welcome, David. Please bless us with your words.
It's like, oh yes, I forget the Latin. Oh my gosh, this was absolutely delightful. Thank you, Brian, for coming. I made a comment near the beginning about how, I mean, I deconverted in the middle of Bible college, and it was a couple years later that Mr. Deity show started coming out, and it was the exact humorous balm that was needed to get
Oh,
through
great.
the last of school. So thank
That's
you,
awesome.
and you're just the gift that keeps on giving. So
Oh,
thank you.
wow. Thank you.
And yeah, and a reminder to everybody that if you can't make fun of the things you think and the authority in your life, it's probably not one that you should be paying too much attention to. So keep the humor coming, everybody. Thank you.